Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today I'm going to be doing a book review for the Witch Boy Trilogy. The Witch Boy Trilogy is a middle grade graphic novel series that focuses on this boy who is in a magical family within kind of this magical world. Typically we see boys who are shapeshifters and girls who are witches. But Aster doesn't really do shapeshifting, he's not very good at it, but he has taken to witchery. He starts sitting in kind of in secret in some of the classes that the girls are taking, and a large part of the book is about him wanting to be a witch and his family kind of coming to terms with different things. Now alongside this plot there are other plot lines within each one of these books. In the first one there is something dark, some sort of creature that keeps coming on their land, and eventually one of the boys goes missing. So that's sort of kind of the premise for you going in. And each of the kind of main events that happens in the subsequent books was also really good. In each one of them there is kind of this element of dark magic that comes up and they have to figure out what to do about it, but it's not, I think, super predictable. It's definitely good for middle grade. The dark magic in each of these situations is not exactly the same. I absolutely adored this series. I thought that this was a beautiful and very successful metaphor for transness, and I'll go a little bit more into detail on that later when I focus on themes. But in general, the characters are adorable. The cast is very diverse. Even within the main family that gets focused on, there's a lot of racial diversity. You can see like the main family is basically set up like the Weasleys, but they still managed to put in a decent amount of that. Aster also has a best friend who's a non-magical human, who's black, and has two dads who are in an interracial relationship. So there's a lot going on here. I think that especially with the idea of it being like a metaphor for transness, there is kind of a concern that perhaps they're trying to do something without being like too much, like sort of saying that they have representation without actually having to do it. But I didn't really get those sort of vibes from this because they really did strive for diversity, and there is that kind of LGBT representation in Charlie's dads, but also I feel like especially towards the end of the book there was definitely some like flirting and cute stuff between two of the female characters. And honestly, I think that the way that they did this, it was really accessible for people, especially kids who might not totally get what it is to be trans, but it puts it in a context that's just really easy to understand. Now I'm going to dig a little bit into some of the themes that I saw in these books. There aren't going to be any major spoilers. I won't be very specific with certain details, but if you are the kind of person who really doesn't want to hear anything about a book, I would kind of leave at this point. I talked about the fact that transness kind of as a metaphor flows through all of these. This first one, it's definitely really obvious because Aster is trying to kind of get his family to come to terms with this. Some people are taking it easier than others, some people are supportive, some people aren't. And the friend that he finds, Charlie, is really supportive. First of all, their friendship, I think, is one of the things that's important in this book as well. Typically, magical people and humans don't really get to be friends. They don't really talk with a lot of people from the outside world. So kind of befriending someone who's different than you, I thought that was an important piece to this. But also the main thing that happens just with the plot kind of some of the darkness and why it's there, I think speaks a lot to internalized transphobia. I don't want to say that that's 100% like allegorical or anything like that. However, the backdrop of it, without giving too many specific things away, one of the big things that we see in this from kind of one of the main plots is the harm of bullying and the harm of pushing somebody to be somebody that they're not. That's really apparent in this book, and I thought that that was a really important theme, especially for a kid's book and for a kid's book that's talking about being trans or being LGBT. Another thing that it hits on, looking at the magic and everything, is the kind of negative ramifications from getting power in a way that's negative or corrupt or preys on other people. So I thought that those were kind of the important points of Witch Boy thematically. Now in Hidden Witch, we see more dark magic again. Something dark keeps following around Charlie, who is Aster's friend. And they have to figure out what that is, and throughout it they end up seeing this new girl who is in school, Ariel, and she plays a role in the plot as well. And really I think that one of the things that's key in this book, and really in all three of these books to be honest, is the power of love and friendship and the power of redemption. That one, the power of redemption, is I think the clearest in this one. And kind of alongside that also the idea that people aren't inherently bad. Some people can do bad things, but that doesn't make them bad. And I think that's another thing that definitely follows into Midwinter Witch. Now, the main plot in this one is that they're going basically to the family reunion, but they have kind of a competition within the family reunion. But kind of as they're doing this, Ariel ends up seeing something that becomes kind of a big part of the plot line. But within this one, like I said, there's the idea that people aren't inherently bad and that people can be better. There's also a really big role that friendship plays in this, and love, and the idea of chosen family, which I think is one really essential themes in a lot of LGBT literature in general. One of the other big themes in this comes from Aster wanting to participate in the challenge that their family regularly does, but not everybody in his extended family is really okay with a boy who's a witch. So his mom doesn't really want him to compete, but he does want to anyways. So in this, there's definitely that theme of being yourself despite what other people think. And I think that that ties around really, really well with kind of a lot of the themes in the first book of the dangers of forcing somebody to be someone that they're not. So that is sort of what I got from this trilogy. Overall, this was just a really adorable series. It made me feel a lot of things. I think one of the things that hit me so much about this series, and yes, even though it's a middle grade, I did cry reading this, especially the last one. Honestly, even just the dedication page made me tear up. Maybe that's not saying much because I'm kind of a crier, but these books are so important because they are middle grade and because they touch on a lot of different issues in a way that's really accessible to a lot of people. And I just kind of imagine what it would be like if these kinds of books were available when I was a kid, the kind of impact that it would have on me and the kind of impact that it would have had on people that I'm friends with. This kind of representation is just super important, and being able to talk about things like LGBT identities, but also other kind of social things in multiple contexts is really important. So stories that are trans narratives and are explicitly trans narratives are incredibly important. So we absolutely do need those. But I think that being able to take that narrative and some of the issues that people see and put them in a different context that's easier for a child to understand, or honestly a lot of adults need something like this too to really get it, is absolutely essential. I adored this series, and you should also go and read it. I'll probably have this posted while middle grade March is still going on, so if you needed some sort of inspiration, a direction to go in, these are really good, and they're really quick reads. I think each one of these, it maybe took me an hour max to kind of sit and read them. Of course, if you're reading them with a child, it's going to take longer. And hopefully you would sit and talk with them throughout it too, because I think that these have the potential to facilitate good conversations. But I love these books. It was absolutely a 5-star series. If you've read this series, comment down below and let me know what you thought about it. Regardless of whether or not you've read this series, let me know what your favorite LGBT middle grade book is, or your favorite LGBT graphic novel. As always, thanks for watching. Bye!